There was a time when Warzone just worked. You'd land, get your load out, and win a fight you had no right winning. And for a few hours, nothing else really mattered. It was simple, it was clean, and it was a hell of a lot of fun. And more importantly, it felt effortless. Same game today doesn't feel anything like that. Warzone didn't die overnight, it didn't suddenly become bad. It just stopped being fun. And the weird part is, most people don't really explain why. They just know it doesn't hit the same. And if you played during Verdansk, you already know exactly what I mean. This isn't a Warzone is trash video, because at one point, Warzone was the fucking greatest. It was the best shooter on the market. This is about why it stopped being fun, where things actually went wrong, and why this version of Warzone that we know and love is never coming back. Because the truth is, Warzone didn't just fall off, it became irrelevant. And it started at the very beginning. Warzone didn't launch at a good time, it launched at the perfect time. The world had slowed down, people were at home, friends who hadn't touched games in years suddenly had time again. Group chats came back to life, squads reformed, and Warzone became the place that everyone met. Not just to play, but to hang out. And that mattered more than anything, because Warzone wasn't just competing with other games, it was replacing them. And then you add the design on top of that, the Call of Duty gunplay, everyone was familiar with it. Responsive and satisfying, loadout so you weren't relying on random loot to win a fight. The Gulag, giving you a second chance instead of sending you straight back to a lobby. Contracts, so there was side missions to do. It wasn't revolutionary in one area, it was just better in every area that mattered. It was simple, but not shallow. You always had a plan, you always had control, and it made it addictive. But more than anything, it was social. Everyone had a squad, everyone had a drop spot, everyone had a routine. You didn't need to think about it. You'd load in and someone would say superstore, hospital, prison, and that was it. No discussion, no debate, just muscle memory. And that's the part people forget when they talk about Warzone. It wasn't just fun because of the game, it was fun because of who you were playing with. That version of Warzone wasn't just a game, it was a moment in time. And that moment had a name, Verdansk. Because if we're being honest, Warzone wasn't Warzone, it was Verdansk. That map carried everything. You could close your eyes and still picture it. The layout made sense. The rotations felt natural. The points of interest weren't just locations, they were identities. Superstore chaos, hospital rooftop fights, prison endgames, airport beams. Every area had a personality. Every game told a different story. And it felt grounded. It looked like a war zone, it sounded like a war zone, and it played like a war zone. No distractions, no gimmicks, just you, your squad, and whatever fight you were about to take. And that's the reason people still talk about Verdansk today. Isn't because it was perfect, it's because of the memories. Everyone has one. Their first win, that one clutch, that one game where everything just clicked. That's what made it special, not the mechanics, the moments. But the version of Warzone didn't last. Because this is where things started to go wrong. Slowly at first, then all at once. The integrations, Cold War, Vanguard. Then everything came after. Different games forced into one system, different weapons, different mechanics, different design philosophies. All things to exist in the same place. Because not everyone wants to sweat every game, not everyone wants to track metas, not everyone wants to relearn mechanics every season. People just wanted to jump on with their mates and have a good time. And that became harder and harder to do. Then came the bigger shift, the tone changed. At some point, Warzone stopped taking itself seriously. It went from grounded military shooter to something else entirely. Bright skins, celebrity operators, over the top cosmetics. And it's not the skins that are the problem, it's what they represent. A shift in focus from gameplay to everything around it. And you could feel it. There was something new. Nothing felt finished. new systems, new mechanics, new updates, constantly breaking. But instead of improving the game, it just made it more complicated, more cluttered, more exhausting. And that's the word people don't use enough. Exhausting. Warzone became tiring to play. Too much to think about, too much to keep track of, too many changes, too many variables. It's just stopped being something you could just enjoy and became something you had to manage. And at the same time, the rest of the industry caught up because Warzone didn't fall off in isolation. Other games got better. And this is the part people really don't talk about. Warzone didn't just change, everything around it improved. If you want pure multiplayer chaos right now, something like Marvel Rivals is just more fun. It's fast, it's focused, every match feels different. You're not spending 10 minutes looting just to lose one fight and start again. If you want large scale boots to ground experience, Battlefield's multiplayer is doing that better too. It's cleaner, more readable. You actually feel like part of a Battlefield again. And if you still want Battle Royale, PUBG is still there. The OG. It's still slow, still tense, still punishing, still doing exactly what it set out to do. But here's where things really shift. The attention is moving. Right now, it's extraction shooters. Games like Ark Raiders are pushing it further because extraction does something Battle Royale doesn't do anymore. It gives you a purpose. You're not just dropping in to survive, you're dropping in to leave something, gear, progress, a reason to care what happens next. That risk, that tension, it feels new again. And that's the problem for Warzone. It's not competing with itself anymore, it's competing with what's next. And right now, what's next is more interesting. And then there's the part nobody really wants to admit. Perhaps Battle Royale itself has had its moment. The first time you drop into a huge map with one life, it's intense, it's exciting, it's different. Then it becomes more of a pattern. Drop, loot, fight, rotate, repeat. The unpredictability fades, the tension becomes routine, and no matter how many updates you add, you can't recreate the first feeling. That's not a Warzone problem, but that's how it goes. And this is where we get to the truth. The reason Warzone doesn't feel fun anymore isn't because it's changed so much or lost its identity. It's because it stopped being the best option. There are better multiplayer experiences now, more focused ones, more rewarding ones, and for the first time in a long, long time, Call of Duty isn't leading that. But here's the interesting part. Call of Duty will always adapt, and if something like Ark Raiders really takes off, as it has, don't be surprised to see if we see a shift. Proper return. Something like Modern Warfare 4 in 2026, which will bring DMZ 2.0, that actually is probably going to be the revival of COD, if there is going to be one. Because if there is one thing Call of Duty does well, that's following the moment. And right now the moment isn't Warzone. But that doesn't mean it's over. It just means it needs to change again. Because Warzone didn't stop being fun just because it was bad. It stopped being fun because the moment passed and it couldn't keep up. You can bring back Verdansk, you can tweak the mechanics, you can fix the meta, but you can't bring back that time. You can't bring back you can't bring back everyone being online, you can't bring back those first games. You can't bring back the feeling of not knowing what's coming next. That's gone and it's not coming back. Warzone didn't fail because it was bad, it failed because it was perfect once. And once that moment passed, there's no way to recreate it, only chase it. And that's what we've been doing ever since. So the real question isn't what happened to Warzone, it's this. When did it stop being fun for you? Was it Verdansk? Cold War integration? Somewhere after that? Or did it just fade over time? Because everyone has that moment, that exact point where it stopped hitting the same. For me, when we got rid of Verdansk, that was it. That for me completely killed the game. Everything that came after it has just been a shit show. The movement, mechanics, everything. It's just not the game I put so much time into and I loved. I don't want to be sliding and all that fucking wall running shit. It's just not what Call of Duty is to me, and I don't think they'll ever be able to replicate that no matter what they do, other than just restoring that version of Warzone. As I said, it wasn't perfect. It was very far from perfect, but it was the most fun. I think if we could get a few quality of life updates that we've had since and put them on that version, we're looking at the most perfect version of Warzone we could ever get. All we need is Verdansk. I can't even tell you what the other maps were called. They just weren't memorable. Resurgence is always good fun, as long as it's on Rebirth. Um, Fortune's Keep is also pretty good. Just give us those three on the original. Just basically just restore the fucking original Warzone, and people will play it again. It probably won't be the same because that moment has passed, but it would be the closest thing to perfect that we've had since. And I know it's not just me. I watch these videos and people talk about why it's bad, why it's failed, and the truth is it had too much to live up to, and they've come way, 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 way away from that. Um, you know, just look at the way the movement is now compared to Modern Warfare 19, 2019, sorry, and people hated that game, but that game was so fucking good. You know, it is what it is. Everything moves on, but there's no reason we couldn't see Call of Duty coming back to the forefront of shooters.